I would like to invite Mr. Abhishek Gupta, Dr. Ashwani Swain, Mr. Soumya Prasad Garnayak, Mr. G.P. Hari, Mr. Himanga Deka, and Ms. Sumedha Malviya. I will introduce each of our panelists. So, Mr. Abhishek Gupta is presently working as Head International Business Strategy, Appliances, Rooftop Solar, and Project Evaluation and Assessment with Energy Efficiency Services Limited. He has over 23 years of experience in sustainability, energy efficiency, renewable energy, and infrastructure project. His core competencies include strategy, negotiations, business development, management, and contract management. He is leading the team that formulates and evaluates business strategies for developing new business verticals, models, and markets for ESL and its group entities, both in India and abroad. Welcome, sir. Dr. Ashwani K. Swain is the fellow at Sustainable Futures Collaborative, where he works on energy policy and governance and energy transition. His research interest includes political economy of electricity, subnational preparedness for energy transition, and just transition from fossil dependency. He has also worked on public participation in service delivery and regulatory governance, and has a keen interest in political economy of India. Mr. Soumya Prasad Garnayak, he is presently serving as India country head of Global Green Growth Institute, where he leads the organization's green growth activities at national and subnational level in India. During his 29 years of professional career, Mr. Garnayak has served in government, bilateral and international organization at various capacities in the field of energy policy, energy management, and resource conservation. He has extensive experience in energy efficiency and has worked with prominent institutions such as ESL, BE, NPC, FICCI, and ICF International in the past. Welcome, sir. Mr. G.P. Hari. Mr. Hari is presently the founder director of Trans Green Ventures Limited, Kochi, a citizen-driven initiative planning to operate stage carriers electric buses along the national highways within Kerala. He has previously served as executive officer of the Kochi Metropolitan Transport Authority from 2021 to 22 and as additional general manager at Kochi Metro Rail since its inception in 2012. Where he played a key role in finalizing the broad parameters of city's metro rail system, considering ridership forecast, system technology, and economic viability. Welcome, sir. Mr. Himanga Deka, he is presently working as scientific officer in Assam Energy Development Agency, state nodal agency of Assam under Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, Government of India. He has been responsible for implementation of various renewable energy projects such as grid-connected rooftop, off-grid, floating solar, improved cooker stove projects in the state of Assam. He is previously engaged as manager in Central Electronics Limited, Government of India. Sumedha Malviya. Sumedha is head building decarbonization with energy program at WRI India. She leads the program's work on building decarbonization and sustainable cooling. Welcome to all the panelists. So I'll now pass it to Sumedha. Over to you, Sumedha.
Thanks, Deepak, for the introductions to my panelists here. I think it's a privilege to have people from across different demand side sectors, not just from the perspective of the sector itself, but also the perspective you have at your specific institution, organization that has been working at the subnational level. So we have Himang from the STA side. We have, Garnayak sir and Abhishek sir both having that ESL connection, but Garnayak sir is now deeply involved with the building space. And of course, we have, Mr. Hari, who gives in that transport sector perspective. I think one of the things which we have, I being somebody who was a part of both the research, initiatives, both ETPI as well as looking at cities' role in energy transition. This aspect of collaborative governance, which is the theme of this panel, I would request, my panelists to have at least one remark in the end. What do they feel this collaborative governance really means to them? But also provide their sort of, they come from, your insights as what has worked, what has not worked. So in the reports, we talk a lot about what's not working. But we would want to encourage more positive conversations around what's really happening. And with that, I would like to first invite Ashwini. So Ashwini, with the ETPI work looking at this cross-cutting aspects of capacity building of institutions at the ground level, you also, in your, work, describe this aspect of decentralized governance and the institutions working at the, at the decentralized level. And now we have climate change action cells, we have urban cells which are getting established in several cities. We also have a lot of climate action plans coming out. Could you talk to us about when you looked at this, building of capacity of ground level actors at the state level on delivering some of these energy transition and climate actions between these two study periods of ATPI? What are some good things which you found in your research? What are some positive examples? Maybe you could also name a few states where you have learned that this is happening, this collaboration is working, and what can we really, learn from that?
Thanks, Sumedha. So, to start with, I'll probably take 30 seconds to give you the context. So, between WRI, India, Prayas, and us at Sustainable Futures Collaborative, we started thinking about ATPI some 5 years back. And the project has been 4 years old now, moving into second phase. So, when we're thinking planning ATPI 5 years back, the big concern for us was to look at the gap between center and state, particularly in terms of ambition and implementation gap. So that's why we call it a state level framework. So even when we are doing that, we thought looking at the frontline capacity is a big question, because as Rusab rightly pointed out in the beginning, as you go down the governance system, the implementation becomes more stronger, and it becomes more important from implementation perspective. So that's why we, when designing the framework, we looked at is there enough intent to build capacity at the frontline level. So that was our simple focus in ATPI. So in terms of changes over these two study cycles, which includes 2021 and 23-24, if you look at granular level, there are a lot of micro things moving. So the needle is moving a little bit towards positive direction. So the big change, I will say that at least most of the 10 states we are studying, they're recognizing local governments, city administrations, PRIs as important players in implementation of energy transition and climate action. So in fact, when we were planning ATPI 5 years back, city climate action was not a thing back then. So these are new things which has developed later. So city level climate vulnerability, energy transition action. So those things have happened. So that's the positive story. So a lot of changes has happened, and all in the positive direction. But I also want to point out some disappointment. So it's not always rosy. So the disappointment is it's all rhetoric. There hasn't been any substantive movement in terms of capacity building or.
What about the role of budgets now? Climate budgets are suddenly coming in by many cities as well.
Yeah, but it's not only finance. So if you look at, it has to happen in multiple ways. So I'd point out few things. First, there has to be decentralization of responsibilities, then devolution of finance corresponding to that. So responsibilities, you cannot just say that you do this, cities have to do this. If you look at the city climate action plans, which I'm sure you have looked at, so every city has a very different approach. So most of the cities who have produced a climate action plan, they're talking about electricity is not in our control. So I mean, we want it to be green, but the DISCOM will do this, the state will do this. So except one city, which is Bangalore, because the city and DISCOM jurisdiction sort of overlaps, they have been able to set some specific target in terms of green energy procurement. But other cities are struggling with that because they don't have the authority. So when you delegate responsibilities, you also have to build capacity accordingly, and then finance comes in for implementation. So that coherent strategy has to happen. So the other point I wanted to highlight is in terms of training and capacity building, as Rusab pointed out in the beginning, there has been a range of training happening for city level agencies or even local level agencies, and half of that is happening from the central government side. And some states are a little proactive, and already all the states have identified a designated agency for capacity building. But we don't know how much training happening, and in ATPI we haven't actually looked at that. But if you look at these trainings, these are one way. So capacity building is not giving a technical knowledge, know-how, just delivering it. It's building the capacity the existing institutions have. So you build on the existing capacity. So that means collaborative, co-working on capacity. So that hasn't happened so far. So probably, I don't know how far I addressed your question, but I'll stop here.
Yeah, no, you gave me more questions to ask, but yeah, I think the aspect of this delegation of responsibilities, and decentralization of responsibilities, and then decentralization of the financing part is very clear. And yeah, we have been observing the capacity gaps, in terms of what's really happening on the ground. I would now like to shift to the sector, sort of, how the sectors are responding, and particularly the transport side, which we usually do not imagine as being something as a part of the energy transition, but it's very much a part of the not just in terms of electric mobility, but just generally how do we shift people to cleaner modes of transport, but also cleaner modes of moving from point A to point B. And in that context, I wanted to ask Hari sir here, especially with your hat as ex-KMRL and somebody who has lived in, Kochi as well. Particularly the work that has happened on the UMTA, the Unified Metropolitan Transport Authority, which was established to coordinate across different departments, especially when it looks like combining all forms of mobility from the point of, leaving your house to the last mile connectivity to entering the metro. Where do you see the institutions like UMTA fitting into playing a critical role in advancing India's energy transition, particularly low carbon, efficient and sustainable urban transport systems? And if you could speak from the KUMTA, the Kochi Metropolitan Transport Authority example.
So, good evening all. The collaborative governance, it is borrowed from the National Urban Transport Policy 2006. Probably some of you might be aware it is contributed by Dr. O.P. Agarwal, who was former CEO of WRI. So every Metropolitan Transport Authority working in India or going to come, it has to draw things from the NUTP 2006. NUTP clearly underlines the importance of collaborative governance. Now, for the present subject, we need to add one more action plan, which is the energy transition. Say, as far as Kochi is concerned, when we were in Kochi Metro in 2014, the first Kerala Metropolitan Transport Authority Act was submitted to the government. It took 5 years to get it passed in the assembly. So in 2020, 2019, the act was passed. The act was envisaging metropolitan transport authorities in 3 cities in Kerala: Kochi, Calicut and Trivandrum. Kochi was announced in 2020. So that means we took about 6 years to implement Kochi Metropolitan Transport Authority. Unfortunately, the COVID came and we could not do much. But on the other side, there were some planning we have done already in the gap of about 6 years. The one which we have done is we tried to aggregate the private bus owners into 7 clusters. 7 societies or 7 LLPs were formed, and we have started with the smart card ticketing, etc. It's all diesel buses. Then we have aggregated the auto rickshaw drivers, probably first time in Indian history that all the trade unions, CATU, INTUC, BMS, all those trade union leaders were brought together And Ernakulam District Auto Rickshaw Drivers Cooperative Society was formed in 2018. Again, the COVID has made a big blow, but they could get a loan from the State Bank of India for about 30 auto rickshaws. Those 30 electric autos are operating in Kochi now. And Kochi Metro has procured 75 electric autos. So those 75 plus 30 auto rickshaws are being operated by this cooperative society. It's not, functioning very well, but it's just rolling out. And bus, we could not do any electrification, though it was envisaged that we should be able to bring few electric buses under some public limited company or private limited company or under a society that we could not do it. But in Kochi, we have the Kochi International Airport, which is already running on solar energy, the world's first airport which is completely utilizing the solar power. We have Kochi Metro, it's completely electrified. 65% of the energy comes from the solar power. So, and out of about 15,000 auto rickshaws, we could do hardly this say 100 plus auto rickshaws. So there are many works to be done. So this is where the collaborative governance, the importance of collaborative governance comes. The UMTA, in India's one of the best working UMTA is you can see at Chennai. Chennai Chennai UMTA. It's called CUMTA. It has got a very large space. Some nearly 50-60 people, transport planners, etc. They have been recruited, doing a lot of studies. They are also implementing certain things. So probably Chennai CUMTA is one role model to look at it. So as far as the energy transition is concerned, every metropolitan transport authority which is going to come across India maybe in coming few years, they will have to do two things. Number one, the technical side. I'm making use of the transport planners, urban planners, etc., etc. But end of the day, you need to do the business planning. Every operator needs a profit. Without profit, no operator can work. Whether it is auto rickshaw, whether it is taxi, bus, even the state-owned bus system, or even the state-owned the metros. Everyone requires a good business model, good profit, only then it can work. So the role of the Metropolitan Transport Authority doesn't restrict only on planning and implementation of integrated public transport, even including the energy transition. It doesn't work unless they themselves will have to encourage those people, tell them these are the business model, how to maximize the profit. Only then with this money, the economy can work. That's it. We'll discuss in the next. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. This is, since you spoke about business models, I couldn't help but think about who I need to ask the next question to, and this is going to be Abhishek ji. Because ESL, has emerged as this super ESCO is what we used to, we continue to call it. But also the business model that it has deployed very successfully in certain areas. And not so well in certain areas as well. I think that is something that ESL has also recognized as a challenge. One thing which we have always, we have done the research in both the state level and at the city level, and we've understood that ESL has played a very critical role as far as building cities' capacity is concerned on simple things like putting up a very good, street light. But at the same time, what has been the experience at this, working with the state governments on some of these initiatives? So was it easier to work with cities, having cities as clients? When we say cities, ULBs as clients, or was it easier to have state government agencies as clients? And if in that journey that ESL has had over the last decade, if you could talk about what has been some, insights from that working with states and cities, maybe 2 or 3 key takeaways in ESL's journey, that would be, very useful to understand, sir.
Thanks, Sumedha, for a very interesting question. We as ESL have been working with states, cities, central government, public sectors. But one thing which has been very common, the people are actually willing to change. It's just that how effectively you are able to communicate your business proposition to them, and how effectively they are able to get the required resources, which is critical for this kind of transformation. If you see the street lighting program or municipal energy efficiency program, building energy efficiency program, all these programs have seen specific advantages and gains being made in the respective areas. And ESL has been actually a catalyst, I'll say, in overall business proposition, because we are seeing the kind of self-driven approach being adopted by not only states, rather cities as well, rather at rural level as well. That is quite heartening. If we talk about specifically street light, I'll say that now we are talking not only to the cities, rather more on the rural areas, because that's where the real potential lies as far as energy efficiency level interventions are required. On the flip side, if I talk about my municipal energy efficiency programs, we find that such interventions are a little tricky to handle because it requires significant amount of capex, and the confidence of having an energy efficient system in complex situations is little on the lower side. And that's where we find the real challenge lies, because tapping the low hanging fruits has already been done. But what is now required is to move up in the ladder and see how effectively we can tap the potentials which are already there, and the potential of those complex areas are much higher than the low hanging fruits what we have already tapped on. We have seen some specific cities like smart cities. Their approach has been very positive because they had good amount of fund as available as well, and they necessarily did not go for typical ESCO model what ESL had been proposing. They went ahead and they did the upfront capex based systems, and they are now even more confident of propagating the similar business model for their further propositions. If I talk about building energy efficiency program, a lot of state undertakings have been the beneficiary as well as the central government benefit undertakings. We find that what is missing in overall scheme of things is the comprehensive approach. So far, the approach is more on changing the lights or changing the air conditioners, changing the fans, but actually that's not is sufficient. An integrated approach towards seeing the energy portfolio of the establishments is actually important. And we have seen that if that kind of approach is actually increasingly used for seeing the total impact what a particular building is making, would give us the much better result than what we have actually got so far. If you talk about takeaways, I see I'll agree to disagree to a certain point on Mr. Ashwini. It's not only the buzzword. Things are happening, though not at a pace at which it is actually required. And that's where our role is, to act as a catalyst to help such entities come up with their own plans and do the transformation which is actually urgently required. Thank you.
Sir, I would say that was a very diplomatic answer. But and I would want to probe you more about this aspect of how you think with respect to cities really rising up and recognizing this as a key challenge, because I think in the morning also we were hearing from Dr. Bhide saying that cities are supposed to be engines of growth, but they're not in the driver's seat. So I will probably come back to you later on that and understand what is really happening in those conversations with cities. I'll now, move on to Mr. Gharnayak over here, and he has been managing a very ambitious project looking at promoting low carbon buildings in several states, 3 states at the moment, but with the learning of this Asia Low Carbon Buildings Transformation Project being percolating to other states and cities as well. So, we recently released a state energy efficiency index as well a few days back, and more states have notified ECBC. There have been some changes in the way the building sector policies have been implemented. There have been some states which have gone back and some states which are continuing to hold on to their sort of champion positions. I'm wondering if those are the states, those are the exact states that GGGI is working with, the front runner ones. But if you could talk about this sector, the building sector being, of course, one of the transport is also a state subject, and so is the building sector is also a state subject. But what has been your experience bringing in multiple institutions in these 3 states that LCBT is operating in on the building side? But also, why have you selected those institutions? What is the reason behind them? And what has been the journey so far, sir?
Thank you, Sumedha. Pleasure to be here. Good evening, everyone. We are now implementing one project, Asia Low Carbon Building Transition, ALCBT in short. This is funded by International Climate Initiative by Government of Germany. It is being implemented in 5 countries, including India. The other countries are Cambodia, Indonesia, Thailand, and Vietnam. The major objective of this program is how to establish a low carbon buildings which are going to be constructed. So more focus is on the new building sites. Even the operational carbon which is coming from the existing buildings in the form of energy what they use, that is also being considered, and which is a part what Swetha talked about under this ECSBC, the code of Bureau of Energy Efficiency. We designed this program in 2022. Once we understand the objective, what are the outcome of this program, then we can see who could be the stakeholders or who could be the partners, entities with whom we are working with. One of the major important objective is to mainstream the low carbon building carbon performance assessment. Per square meter, this building is contributing how much embodied carbon. The moment I talk about embodied carbon, it is talking to the building materials, constructions. So accordingly, your stakeholders are the material manufacturers and all. Similarly, and then the operational carbon, which is the energy efficiency, or you can say energy intensity, which is again converted to carbon intensity. So there is a policy angle to this. So we started with our thing with Bureau of Energy Efficiency, because they are the custodian to implement the energy conservation and sustainability building code at the national level, and which is being a state subject, being taken care of by the state level SDS, the state designated agency. So they become the obvious natural choice for our political partner. But per se, if you talk about the new buildings which are going to be constructed, and we say there are more than 60% of the buildings are yet to be built, so that means it has to go through a permission process, the permit process, the designing, the approvals, everything. So in that case, the new ministry comes into the picture, that is Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. It falls under that. And in that case, when you go to the state level or the subnational level, it is the city planners, city authorities, the RERA, the Real Estate Regulatory Authority, all these people come into picture. But you see, these are the political partners. So the political partners in the overall program, they may be having least interest but high influence. They can influence the program like anything because of their authority, because they are governed under the law. But their interest may be less, and that's the biggest challenge. How can you create the interest in this particular program? And in India, we are operating in 3 states, Kerala, Uttar Pradesh, and Haryana. And once we go to the state and discuss with the political partners there, imagine, please believe me, it is a hell of a task to convince the low carbon, the building performance assessment tool, etc., etc. Simply creating the awareness among them is the biggest challenge what we could face. Now coming to how we are implementing the other partners we are implementing here. GGGI is an international intergovernmental organization. It is a developmental organization. And we cannot go and do the things of their own. So we need local partners. ESL is also, again, a government entity, is also our local partner here. They are also implementing certain activities under this project. So we use their network to convince to those people that this is something which is going to be, the major outcome which is going to be. So this is the political partners. That is one thing. The other thing is that we have to involve the people who are involved in the entire ecosystem. So what does it mean? It means that we have to include the architects, the developers, the designers, even the financial institutions who are going to actually lend or contribute in the financing angle when the new buildings are going to be built up. But they is a part of the business cycle actually, and their interest may be something high, but they may not influence much in this entire process. So in our structure, in our designing of the program and the program which are implementing, these people are also extremely important, and we are working with the building developers, the architects, the financial institutions, bankers, even the energy servicing companies, particularly for the existing buildings, because we have a component of retrofitting the existing air conditioning system in the buildings which are more than which are having more than 100 kilowatt or 125 kVA connected load. So that's the kind of thing we are there. What we struggled, Sumedha and ladies and gentlemen, here is that we are asked to develop a building registry of 1600 buildings in these 3 states. That means it is a data. Name of the building, what is the carpet area, what is the floor area, what is the conditioned area, and what is the connected load, what is the energy performance index, that is KWH, or unit consumption per square meter. Believe me, this data was absolutely not available. Or even if it is available, these are not at to the correct level. When we put all this information in our BEAT tool, that is Building Emission Assessment Tool, which has been developed and customized in the Indian context, we even need the bill of quantities of these buildings which were built even 5 years, 6 years, or 10 years back. And those data are also not available. And this I discussed personally with Bureau of Energy Efficiency. And the concern is that, can we have a centralized building registry? Point here is that there are maybe connected load. People say, वो आपको connected load का data नहीं मिलता है, और मिलता है, but that is at the DISCOM site. DISCOM can give who is giving the electric connection. But where can we get a single point of source where the electricity information, the physical information, the any other informations are available at a single place? And these have not been done in the past. And for me, because I worked in the government for quite a long time, we cannot repeat this mistake again and again. So that is what I argued with Bureau, saying that why don't you create a mechanism, institutional mechanism, whenever a new building coming to be registered or going for the approval process in any state, all these information should be available at a single place, and that single place should be a centralized registry system. Probably that can make the sense. And this is how we are working with our implementing partners. We are working with the other beneficiaries, and there is a component of capacity building also. We have to train about 2,100 people from various ecosystems. And these people, they will be just coming and participate in the training. And it is a 3 days. So mobilizing these participants is another challenge. Who is going to do this? So we have to utilize the local partners. We have to utilize the networks like FICCI, CII, Administrative Staff College of India, Energy Efficiency Service Limited. That is where we are going and reaching out to those people. So it is a combination of the challenges. It's a combination of finding the solutions, as well as how to take it in a much effective manner. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And as I said, it's an ambitious project, given the scale of effort. So even for 1,600 buildings, the challenge exists of even getting bare minimum data on connected load, or looking at even the carpet area, and finding a single place which aggregates this information. I mean, I think for us in the sector, we always assume that this will be so good to have. But when you actually go to a ULB, or you sit in the office of a municipal corporation, they are dealing with a lot of paper, not even digital transactions. So that's where the reality of many of our cities is. I am going to now sort of, go slightly up in terms of the level of governance. We have talked about how things are happening at the city, looking at the different demand sectors. I also have with us Hemang, who represents IDA. the Assam Energy Development Agency, which is the state nodal agency for Assam on renewable energy. Now, we understand that the SNAs and SDAs have a very defined mandate as far as implementation of renewable energy and energy efficiency is concerned. But there has been a shift in the balance of powers as far as the roles and responsibilities of an SNA is concerned. Do you experience that in Assam as well? Some other states are also experiencing the same thing, that now we are no longer a part of, say, rooftop solar conversations. It is being taken over by the DISCOM or by the electric utility in many states. This is something which we have also learned through ETPI. Would you want to talk about what those experiences are in Assam? And if you had to reimagine the role of an SNA in today's context, given that we have these, this vision of energy transition in cities, where do you think these 2-3 reimaginations of an SNA at the state level can lie?
Thank you. Thank you for the question, and good evening to all. Before going into that, I just want to first say that whatever sir said, Abhishek sir said, that there is always an acceptance by people for the energy transition. That is there. You see people starting with solid fuel, then liquid, then to gas. So that is always there. So this is energy transition is imperative. And ESL then coming up with Ujjwala scheme, the LED scheme, that was a major energy transition that had taken place in the country as well. So with regard to your question, what majorly in states, what particularly I'll talk about Assam. So the state government actually holds the primary lever for the energy transition activities that are taking place, and they take it through the EPDs, the DISCOMs or the transport department, whereas the city governance is mostly reactive to whatever the policies or that has been approved by the cabinet. With respect to SNAs, over the past years, what has happened is that the roles of SNA has been slightly limited, because the renewable energy has suddenly taken a boom in the last 5 to 10 years, and the DISCOM, where the SNAs were primarily focused on improving the state acceptability of the renewable energy in the state. And once it was developed by the SNAs with the support of MNRE, now the numbers have come into account, like more numbers have to come into account. This is the target and this has to be achieved. Now in that cases, DISCOMs which have more reach in different districts, and to achieve those targets, obviously ministries, or they will look into where institutions where they have more reach. However, SNAs can definitely play a major role, small projects, whether waste to energy projects with city governance policies, with the ELBs, with the ECSBCs, because you see SDAs are also working out in the states for acceptance of the ECSBs. Whenever a new building comes up, whether it complies with the ECSBC, so states has to come up with a mandate to enforce those ECSBCs, so that this is complied with. And also the major issue I would say is that there is no proper or responsibility outline given to these organizations. If there would have been proper outline that this organization would do this amount of work and this is the responsibility or this is the accountability this organization has been given. So if that is more clear and that outline is given, then there will not be any overlapping, or the accountability will be much more to that. So I think SNAs can still play a very major role, because when grid connected rooftop, earlier, now PM Surya Ghar is there. Earlier it was a grid connected rooftop project, phase 1, phase 2, like that is started. So in all the states, SNAs had played a major role for the acceptance of the grid connected, whether it would be successful or not. a lot of discoms had a feeling that the grid connected, when there is no grid supply, the grid solar power plant will eject the power to the grid and somebody would be electrocuted or the transformer would fail. So during the first phase of the GCRT programs, SNS had done a lot of work to make them understand how the systems have work. A lot of trainings were given out. So SNS have built up the space to work out for the discoms to achieve more targets for the states as well as for the country as well.
Great, thanks, Hemang. And I think the fact that you reminded the audience also about the initial role the SNAs were playing, particularly with technology acceptance, like making renewable energy as a technology that people would want to go for, and also building capacity of institutions along the line. I think that's an important distinction to make in this sort of reimagining of SNAs. And as you rightly pointed out, that identifying even nodal agencies for each of these activities and sort of laying it out that this is what you are supposed to be doing, that could really help us with sort of moving the SNA role forward. We do have about 15 minutes little less than 15 minutes left in the panel. I'll take the opportunity to ask my panelists more questions, and also maybe if there are questions from the audience, we would request to be interrupted and maybe raise your hand and you could ask them. In that train of thought, I think Ashwini, the points that you were making regarding some of the rhetoric being something which is bothering you, that it's a lot of it is on paper, nothing is really moving on the ground. With respect to some of the recommendations, what we have heard is that should we look at establishing, at what level of decentralization should we really go to? If we have to build this frontline capacity, what is the right level to start if we want to look at collaboration across all these different levels? So would you want to comment on that?
No, that is a great question. So just to clarify, I was saying we have taken the first step of ensuring a strong intent for building frontline capacity. So what I was trying to say is in last 5 years, 5 years back, we are talking about implementation and ambition gap between center and state. Now we are talking about city level, local level governance. So that's the positive change. But now we have to really operationalize that. As Mr. Deka pointed out, we don't have clarity of responsibilities at institution level. But also the governance gap here is our agencies have never worked collaboratively. So to answer your question, this what level of capacity building, what collaboration at what level? I would say it has to happen at different level, like city administration and PRI. We already have a third tier of governance, but the collaboration has to be both vertical and horizontal. So not just between government institutions, but also non-government institutions. And by non-government institutions, I don't mean the NGOs, but only. I also mean educational institutes, agencies like GGI or ESL. So they also have to play an active role. So what I heard in this panel, because our government agencies don't have a history of working together, organizations like intergovernmental organizations like GGI or ESL as a corporate setup to bring in private players also, they can play a significant role in building this collaboration. And that's where we also need institutions like universities, IITs to play a role, creating local capacity as well. So that's my thought. And now that we have established an intent, now it's time to really act on building that capacity at local level and ensuring that collaboration happens at that level.
Thanks, Ashwini. A lot of thoughts to actually go deep into, particularly given that we are looking at different scales of collaboration. Hari sir, one aspect which we also have covered in our ETPI research is this, and I think something which you have also reflected in the past is the role of the central government. We have been talking a lot about states and cities, but you, in your an assessment of the Central Motor Vehicles Act, which is actually a driver of many of the initiatives happening in cities, you were talking about how that act itself has been not interpreted correctly. There are so many gaps that we need to address at the city level and at the state level. Would you want to, talk about that?
One of the best ways you have in a Motor Vehicles Amendment Act. You insert one sector as Metropolitan Transport Authority Act, finished. All the states will have to follow the metropolitan. I mean, the authority will come there. At the same time, subject is good, accelerating, but we should also understand what are the things which are decelerating. For a tea wala, he will decide his cost of tea, 10 rupees, 12 rupees. The restaurant will decide what is the cost of the meal. Railway as an operator will decide what is his fare. The air operator, whether it is Air India or Indigo, they will decide what is their fare. But whereas the poor auto rickshaw and the bus, they cannot decide. Even the powder, the FMCG, the masala manufacturer, the producer himself decides. Whereas the last mile connectivity using auto rickshaws and the bus, one of the key public transport, the fares are decided by the government. It's not been renewed every year. Every employee, whether it is private or government, everyone has a pay hike. It doesn't apply in public transport. So unless and until we know what are all the deceleration factors, we will not be able to address our key subject of this agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I do want to look at the audience and see if there are any questions for the audience. If I can continue to talk to my panelists here, but we want to make sure that the audience also has a chance to interact. If there are any questions. Yes, I see someone behind there.
Thank you, WRI, for organizing this and an amazing panel, different perspectives. I'm Sandra from Chintan Research Foundation. Some few questions. So the first question is to Hari sir. Just ki you had mentioned how Kerala has been working on the transport authority, and also Ashwini sir was mentioning how decentralization is driving the setting up of energy transition acceleration and all. But I actually wanted to ask how much of a correlation is there between decentralization and actually acceleration of the energy transition. For example, taking the case of Kerala itself, it took 6 years, which is an amazing state and example for decentralization. So just wanted to ask how much of a correlation there is. And second question is targeted to the team that has conducted the study. Just wanted to see what are the policy tools that are driving the demand side of energy transition, because we are anyway speaking about the larger collaborative governance, but how is it aligned to the people's aspirations, like what other policy instruments, and is there any best practices or any front-runner states, and what characteristics makes it unique? Just that. Thank you.
Thanks. I'll tackle the second question because that's the easier one. Please read this report and you will find some answers to best practices as well as policy tools which are driving energy transition. But on the first one, that's a very interesting one. I don't know whether Hari sir, you want to take it, or Ashwini, this aspect around correlation between decentralization and how much time it is taking for some of these institutions to really be established at the local level. Any thoughts on that?
Quickly, the correlation with, I cannot put much evidence now, but I can tell you how it's related. So when we're talking about implementation, let's talk about transport decarbonization, so bus electrification. So it has to be done by the transport corporation. or if it is sort of non-motorized transport infrastructure like walking paths, cycling paths, it has to be done by municipal corporation. So if the local agencies have to implement these things, then there has to be proper decentralization of responsibilities and resources. Otherwise, it cannot happen. So that's the simple logic, and correlation we can establish as the things really start moving, and probably there are examples. I mean, Mr. Hari can probably talk about Kerala, but I don't have concrete examples. So I'll give you one more example, which I said in the beginning, that cities are not setting ambitions for green energy procurement, and they're thinking that it's DISCOM's job they will do. That's largely because what Mr. Deka talked about. Now it's all down to numbers. How much target we achieve, how much we deliver on that. But we also have to see that institutions have enabling function. So, for example, if you are talking about city administration, they may not have the resources or capacity to do rooftop solar installation, but with construction building code, for example, in Delhi, you see areas have how many floors you can build. So generally, ground plus 4, but two adjacent buildings are not of same height. That's not conducive for rooftop solar. So that's something the city administration can manage, ensure that the building height, location, all those is standardized. So the point I was trying to make, it's not always delivery of targets, it's also enabling conditions. So that we have to look here.
So do you want to add anything?
For any metropolitan transport authority to work, decentralization is must. Let us imagine that Nagpur is going to have a metropolitan transport authority. It has the metro system, it has bus. I mean, all those systems are already there in Nagpur. How can a metropolitan transport authority in Nagpur will work taking instructions from Mumbai? It is based on our constitution. It is by the people for the people. 90% of the board members of the Metropolitan Transport Authority should be from Nagpur only. You cannot have people sitting at Mumbai and giving directions to Nagpur how your cities should be evolved in with respect to transport. Whatever may be, whether the transition or whatever may be integrated mobility, it has to be the people of Nagpur should decide what kind of city they want it to be. So therefore, in this kind of what you call the subject was the then there is no collaboration or there is, nothing happens. So you have to decentralize. That is must. That is there in the NUTP. You must decentralize, but don't put powers from other party. It is for the people to decide, citizens to decide.
Thank you, sir, for that. And we're running short of time, just about a minute to sort of bring this panel to a close. But I wanted to give Abhishek ji and Ganai sir and Hemang just a minute to sort of summarize their thoughts on. And sir, starting with you, as you said, ESL has been a catalyst. And has accelerated progress on some of these aspects of energy transition. Can it also be a catalyst as far as collaborative governance is concerned on these sectors? If you could, remark on that. And so, Ganayak sir, similar question to you. How do you see, which is that one catalyst that you see could take us far, further ahead as far as collaboration is concerned across different levels of government? And the same question to you, Hemang.
So, if you see ESL's role, as I discussed earlier as well, we have been talking at city level, state level, central level as well. Definitely, there is a role for ESL to have a collaborative approach amongst the organizations. And I just give you an example here. A simple street light. You typically might be seeing the pole is actually owned by DISCOM, because you don't have separate poles for putting up street lights. A street light belongs to the municipality, right? The billing is happening by DISCOM for the consumption of electricity, which is not largely paid. That's a fact. So there is a significant amount of collaboration even in a street light matter. And that experience ESL has, how to manage different stakeholders at a different point of time, and also show that though you are not paying 100% of the cost of the electricity, yet there is a saving which is not reflecting in your account, but there is another party which is called DISCOM. It is there. So that is something which we have experienced, and we see that different organizations, even in buses, we have been mandated to, put on 50,000 buses by Niti Aayog, and we've been able to successful to do this of 15,000 as of now. And we see the kind of different stakeholders which are coming on board. So far, I'll say we have been largely successful in doing that. As far as electric buses are concerned, but definitely it will require significant more effort, and ESL is well poised to do and play a significant role in doing that kind of collaborative progress. Thank you.
Well, when we think of the accelerated transition, clean energy transition from the demand side aspects, so I think the collaboration is extremely important. Everyone will definitely agree on that. But the most important thing is how to build a trust among themselves, how to meet their expectations. And the only way is that how you can build with a strong communications. So it is not just that we'll going a kickoff meeting, leave it there, and then go and implement the projects at the ground. It doesn't help actually. How we'll go on in providing as much information, as much communications with the different stakeholders, actors possible. That is the major way, important way to go ahead about this.
I'll just add is that one Kanak had mentioned that with regard to centralized registry. So to come up with that, you need collaboration from each and every institution, organization. Similarly, with case of energy transition, when you say you need to have aggregation, what kind of renewable energy projects are being taken place in the state. So different departments are working out different renewable energy projects.